Okay, what are you saying, people, and welcome back to the channel. So today, guys, like always, another weekly analysis for you. On the screen, other pairs will be analyzing today, but make sure you stay to the end of the video, guys, because I will be going into depth about each pair, talking through what's happened during this week and potentially what will happen during next week as well. But with all that said, guys, let's get straight into it. Okay, so first up, we've got Euro USD. So for this pair, bit of a crazy week this week. Again, a lot of news impacting this pair and a lot of other pairs as well. As you can see, big move down, back up again, and then bigger move even down. So the market was all over the shop here for Euro USD. Last week, I was speaking to you guys about potential breakouts for this pair we were arranging in this area of consolidation. I said, wait for the breakout either to the upside, then we'll be looking at taking continuations, or to the downside and looking to take continuations back down to the lows down there. So that's what you're looking for Euro USD this week. However, as you can see, when we did break to the downside, price went into another consolidation. So again, price was very choppy there. Then we broke to the upside, looked like we were going to take out those highs, but then we came straight back down and actually took out those lows as well. So again, news really impacted this pair and was a little bit difficult to trade unless you got some trades and then near the highs there. But yeah, Euro USD is coming back into these lows. Hasn't quite reached them yet, but I do think we'll probably just see price, take up these lows here to the left. But overall, structure of the market is still bearish. You can see those lower lows and lower highs. It looks like that theme is still continuing, and looks like we just had a break and retest of this prior low here on the left. So just price support, respected that, and nice bearish engulf into the downside. So I'm expecting more downside coming into next week for Euro USD. Again, I've been talking about the psychological level of 1.15, expecting price to hit that, and I think we'll probably see that hit next week. So looking for sales for Euro USD, especially with this momentum. Really nice support here on the left, which has not been retested. So looking to see if we can continue this small bullish momentum there on 4H to the upside. Respect this area, and you can look for shorts back down into 1.15, or you can look to target the lows here on the left. Depends what you want to do. You can probably look to target that support and maybe leave a little bit to trickle on if you can go reach that psychological level of 1.15. But nonetheless, we're looking for selling opportunities either at that support, turn resistance, or at this key level here as well. If you do break above that, we'll still be looking for sales to the downside. So overall, we do have a bearish bias for Euro USD, expecting some new lows probably next week, and looking to sell at that support, turn resistance, or this resistance up here, which again has not been retested, and looking for sales back down to 1.15 for next week. Okay, so next up we've got USD JPY. So not too much overall this week. We did see some movements on the lower time frames, but on the daily, price action is kind of moving a little bit sideways there, and we can see why. It's because we're still in that weekly level of resistance. So if I zoom out, you can see I've been talking about this level for the past couple of weeks now. Really strong level of resistance there, so you can see multiple wicks in there, and also very strong rejections to the downside. Now we're back at the same level. We saw a bearish weekly candle last week. This week slightly bullish, but overall still holding that resistance. So still expecting to see a little bit of a dip to the downside for USD JPY. Again, nothing too crazy, and that little dip down the weekly can be really nice bearish trend for us on the lower time frames like 4H hourly, and so on. So will be more enough pips to catch to the downside if we can hold that. If we start breaking to the upside, then yeah, I do expect this trend just to continue. So yeah, if we go to the lower time frames, last week I was speaking to you guys about possible pullback, and we can look for our sales to the downside because price was looking a little bit bearish. We had this push, pullback, push, broke through that previous low. So I said if we can get a pullback, and then we'll look for our sales, and I said if we can retrace back into this level here, which we did, we respected that and did see some nice downside. So nice structure there on USD JPY. We'll pull back again, so price is having a hard time breaking through this support here. Of course, potentially could be forming a double bottom to continue to the upside, but we are pulling into this trend line, and that will be the kind of indication, the signal for me to see if we're going to continue up or come back down essentially. So if you do break this trend line to the upside and look bullish, we'll wait for a pullback, maybe a retest of that trend line, some type of higher low, and we'll look for continuations back to highs, and then maybe the next psychological level of of 115 all the way up there. So we could see a continuation to the upside. Remember guys, this market is still very bullish in the higher time frames. But if we can hold that trend line, see some nice rejection coming into Monday, we'll be looking for sells to the downside and expecting to see another leg back into that support. Then if we can break through that support, we could go a lot lower as we start to reject that weekly level a lot more. So we'll be focusing on this trend line to see what happens. We could either be seeing a continuation back to highs. Prices really struggle to break through that support, and normally do see that a lot when we do retrace. We normally find support where the price tests maybe twice or 3 times that it fails to break through, then eventually it just sees that continuation, and that could be happening now. But we do need to take out that trend line there, 1 test, 2nd test, having that 3rd test. If we can take out that trend line, now expecting price back to highs. If not, and then we hold that trend line or hold this resistance here on the left, that lower high, then yeah, sells back into this support here, because obviously we could reject that, but essentially we're expecting to see that weekly time frame of resistance hold and probably move back down into 113 down there in that next psychological level below us. So overall looking for a sell bias, but we'll see what happens at that trend line, because if you do break through it, we'll be changing that bias to buys and looking for continuation to highs. So that's the kind of the trade we're looking for, but hopefully we can push it down a little bit more. So we'll see what happens for next week. Sells if we stay below the trend line, but if we break through impulsively, we'll wait for retrace and continuations to the upside. And next we're going to move on to USD CAD. So USD CAD is still kind of moving sideways. Overall this pair hasn't done too much. It looked like at one point in the lower time frames we were breaking off to the upside, but then we had this crazy push to the downside, and overall price is still kind of moving sideways. You can see on the daily I can just draw a box around those candlesticks, and overall we haven't moved anywhere for the past couple weeks now. So USD CAD still ranging, but we've had this massive drop to the downside, and I'm still expecting probably price to head back down to these lows here. But if we do start to see some US dollar strength coming in, we could break to the upside and see a bit more retracement. Again, looking at kind of this area here, 1.25 there. So it just depends what price wants to do. Does it want to break to the upside and see potentially a reversal, or some retracement, because we've had this quite big move to the downside which hasn't seen much retracement. So we could be looking at that retracement now. If we can obviously break to the upside, we'll wait for the retest on the 4H or hourly and look for continuation back up to 1.25 and just see that retracement. Or do we get ready and see price continue to the downside? In that case, we'll wait for the break, the retest, and the continuation back down to 1.21500 and retest this resistance here, turn support, which saw crazy momentum to the upside, which never got retested. So we'll see what USD CAD wants to do. You can see on the lower time frames price has looked like it's trying to break to the upside there, but again wait for that daily close to really confirm momentum, because on the 4H we've had a few false breaks. So probably wait for the daily to signify if we're going to break to the upside or not. And yeah, if we can break to the upside, we'll wait for the retest and then look for continuations to 1.25. Or if we break to the downside, most likely see continuation. We'll wait for the retest, another swing back down to 1.21500. So that's what we're looking for next week for USD CAD. Again, guys, do wait for those daily closes, because 4H we've had a few false breaks there. So you could probably anticipate another false break happening if you do see a 4H closer. But if you wait for the end of the day and the daily's closing above, then that could be a really nice breakout trade there. Or you can wait for the retest, depending what strategy you're using, or how you like to trade. But essentially wait for the break and retest of those levels, and then yeah, we'll trade in that direction as long as it is a breakout and not a false break. So we'll be looking at buys back up to 1.25 if that's the case, or if we break to the downside, we'll be looking at sells all the way back down to 1.21500 for next week.
Sorry to interrupt the video, guys, but if you are enjoying the content and you find it useful, make sure you go hit the subscribe button down below, and also make sure you drop a like as well. It really does help the channel out. But anyway, back to the video.
Okay, so next up we've got Euro Pound. So for this pair, again another pair that's finding it hard to start trending again. You can see we are just moving sideways here, stuck underneath this support here on the left, turned resistance. So overall price not really going anywhere, and had a bit of a false break there, but snapped right back in. So again, just price taking out stop losses to have that push to the upside, but overall hasn't really gone anywhere. So we have kind of hit that 0.84 target that I said last week. That I said if you do break to the downside, we're looking for 0.84, which price has kind of just moved into into there before having that push to the upside. Now it's back into that range. So I think the next target will be the next psychological level for this one will be 0.83500. So again, if you can get that breakout, we'll be looking at 0.83500 down there, since we've already taken that 0.84. Again, remember, wait for a strong break, wait for the retest, and then take the breakout rather than trying to guess the breakout, especially, you know, look out for false breaks. Or if you do break to the upside back above this support here and obviously above that resistance, then we could be seeing some nice upside for price and probably a push into this support here on the left, term resistance, and come and retest that area there. So just depends what price wants to do. Again, when it's moving sideways, we don't know which way it's going to break out. We just have to wait for price to actually break out, come for the retest, and then we just look at that continuation to the upside or down. So like I said, guys, if we do get that break to the upside, we'll wait for the retest. Again, remember, strong break, probably wait for a daily close, same as USD CAD, daily close above that level, and then wait for the retest, and then a push into 0.85200. Or if we do break to the downside, we'll wait for that retest and then push to 0.83500 down there. Again, really nice risk to reward for both these opportunities. So just wait for the breakout, wait for that retest, and you can look for continuations with some price action confirmation, either up to 0.85200 if we break up, or if we break down to 0.83500. And next up, we've got Aodu USD. So again, for this pair, still continuing to the upside. We had a nice break and retest of this area here. Again, resistance down the left, turn support, nice break and retest, and we saw continuation from there. Again, my targets for AU still stay the same. This 0.76 area here of support and resistance, which price almost has arrived there. Still see price trickling up to the upside a little bit more to go and test that area. Again, lines up with 0.76, nice psychological level as well. And again, you can see this massive head and shoulders pattern here. You've got the left shoulder there making the head, and then the right shoulder, and then obviously we got the break of that, and then price continuing to the downside. So that's the head and shoulders pattern, and this is our neckline there. So looking for price to come and retest that, and either we can see a very strong reaction to the downside, or price might break in and see a bigger push to the upside. So this here is a very key level. We're going to see what happens with that. If we do see some strong rejections, we could be seeing a really big selling opportunity to the downside. If not, and we start breaking and holding that, we could be seeing price, you know, continue the uptrend and maybe even revisiting those highs there on the left all the way up there. So we'll be looking to see what happens there. There could be some nice trades either up or down. So far, we're looking bullish here on the daily chart. Looks like we might be getting a break and retest of this resistance here, turn support. So I'm still anticipating more continuation to the upside, back up to 0.76. So we do have this trend line. You can either look to buy from this trend line or wait for price to retrace a little bit more back into this support here, and then look for buys to the upside. Either which way, I can still see price pushing up to 0.76 and then pushing to the downside. So that's what I'm expecting this week for AUD/USD, either the continuation from the trend line or a retest of that area there. But I think I'll probably be waiting for a test of this support. It's a much cleaner option, and obviously the risk to reward is slightly better as well. So we'll be looking for buys from here. Of course, if you break to the downside, we'll probably change my bias and look for sales on the retest for continuations. But if you can hold that as support, looking for buys back up to 0.76, and then from there we'll probably take some sales back down again. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to NZD CAD. So NZD CAD, not really too much has happened. Price is losing a little bit of momentum now. We saw some nice bullish momentum over the past few days, but we're starting to lose that and become a little bit correct, a little bit choppy there. But price looks like it's breaking above our key level of resistance I've been talking about. As you can see, really strong resistance here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times before price eventually did break through it. And it looks like price is starting to break above and test that as support. And if that's the case, I can see probably price heading to these levels up here and potentially highs up there as well. So as long as we can stay above this resistance, now turn support, there will probably be some nice buy opportunities for NZD CAD back into that resistance up there, and potentially even that resistance all the way up there as well. So I can see a lot more upside for NZD CAD, but we do need to stay above that area, because as you can see, when we do break through, we do see a lot of momentum to the upside. But if we do hold this, now probably see price come right back down, test this area here, because we never retested that, and maybe some areas down here as well. So it all depends what price is doing with that level. So far it looks like it's breaking above and holding as support, so I'm inclined for price to to move to the upside and probably hit one of these two levels. But because it's so corrective, we might see price just break to the downside with a lot of momentum. And if that's the case, and we do see price give us a big push to the downside, we'll wait for the retracement, retest that, and look for sales into that level there, potentially even lower as well. So depends what price wants to do. So far it's holding as support, so I'll expect that to continue into Monday, and there will probably be some nice buys to the upside. But if not, and we break to the downside, and we'll look for the selling opportunities on the retest, and look for a push down to 0.876, which is this level here. So we'll see what happens with this level come onto Monday and next week. So far expecting some buys, but if we do break down, we'll change our bias and look for sales back down into that level. And next we'll move on to pound NZD. So pound NZD, we did see some nice movement to the downside this week. We had some consolidation last week, we broke to the downside, retested. As you can see, price is looking quite bearish right now, so I was anticipating more downside last week. If you did watch my analysis, we're looking for a push into this support here on the left. Really strong support on the weekly time frame. We're looking for price to get there, since we're getting this kind of head and shoulders pattern here on the weekly. Left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder, and expect that momentum to continue, come test the support. Now we're at that support, we're not too sure what price could do. It could either hold that support, we could see some aggressive moves to the upside, or because we are looking quite bearish, we do have that head and shoulders pattern, we well could actually break through this support and see price come to those lows all the way down there. Again, it's the weekly time frame, so we're just going to get the overall scope of the market, see where we could be going and where we're trending. But we're coming into a key support which we're expecting some type of reaction, so we'll be looking for buys around here. But do take into account that the weekly, daily 4H is very bearish right now, so definitely better to wait for price action to start looking bullish again. Wait for some consolidation, a breakout, a double bottom, something like that. Don't be getting too aggressive taking buys right at this level, because we well could spike through this. This is a weekly level, we could be spiking through Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday we start to see some upside as well. So we'll be looking for buys around this area here. We'll look for a double bottom, head and shoulder, something like that to get into some buys, and we'll be targeting in this key area here of support, which we never did get the retest of. I was saying last week it would be nice to get a retest of this level, but we never had that retest. So that's still fresh resistance. That price could come back and retest before maybe continuing lower to the downside. So looking for buys in this area next week for pound NZD. Again, we'll be waiting for at least a double bottom, something like that, to confirm that that support is holding. It's that nice psychological level of 1.91 as well. And if we do break to the downside and start holding this as resistance, then yeah, there will probably be some nice sells. But because we've had such an aggressive sell-off, looking to take advantage of that retracement back up to the 1.93500 area. So looking for buys next week for pound NZD. Hopefully we can hold that support, and if we don't, probably we'll just stay out the market for pound NZD and see what price is giving us. But I can see a push back up to 1.93500, and from there we might come straight back down again. Okay, so next we've got CAD JPY. So CAD JPY again looks like it's in a bit of retracement mode here. We had a big move to the upside recently, and price is looking a little bit bearish, but overall we're struggling to find momentum again either which way. We're kind of consolidating a little bit there with those dojis. We're still looking for a test of this resistance here, turn support. We almost had one this week, price getting quite close, pull back up again. So this is still hasn't been retested yet, and I can still see a move into that area if we do break to the downside. Last week I said we'll be looking for selling opportunities, since we did have this push, an aggressive push. I said if we can get a pullback in, maybe back into this resistance here, which we got a nice one there, could be looking for sales back down into 91. kind of just missed that before price came shooting back up again, but I can still see price pushing to the downside. So as long as we stay below this kind of level, I do see the move to the downside. We also do have this trend line here as well in the market, which is also nice confluence. So there could be some sales quite early on if we do respect that trend line, but if not, we'll be looking at sales at 92,400 again. And if not, if we do take out 92,400, we'll likely just continue to the upside back to 93 and maybe some higher highs as well. But not really too keen on those higher highs because I'm not sure how far they'll move, because price has already seen a lot of momentum. I think it's time for price to retrace. So yes, we could see some upside, some new highs, but I think we'll probably come straight back down after we go and make them. So mainly focused on the selling opportunities for CAD JPY. There could be one early on at that trend line there coming onto Monday morning, during London. If we can hold that, could be some nice sells. But if we do break to the upside, we'll be looking at sells mainly from this level here. And again, the risk reward is much better as well, because this is resistance that's had 1, 2, 3 attempts of price trying to break it. So it is a nice solid resistance, and we will be selling back down into that daily resistance turn support around the 91 level. So mainly looking for this opportunity there, but if not, and we hold onto that trend line, and again, you can be looking for sells back down into this level. Okay, so next we're going to move on to pound USD. So pound USD has been a bit choppy lately, but it's starting to look a lot clearer now, especially with that momentum that we saw coming into Friday there. For pound USD, going on to the lower time frames, 4H, you can see it has been a little bit choppy, but I was mainly looking at this resistance here on the left, taken across, seeing how price was reacting with that, and if we could break underneath, I was looking for some continuation to the downside back down to 1.36. You can see we did get a retest there, but it didn't hold. Price broke to the upside, broke back down. Now we've really seen that momentum come to the downside. So overall, I'm fairly confident we can see a push back down to that 1.36 or 1.36200, which is, if I go back onto the daily time frame, this support here on the left turned or support was resistance there, fell to hold, now turned support again. So I can see price pushing into that level. We also did have this trend line here, which price was breaking above, but now as you can see, it is firmly back underneath it again. So we'll be looking to see if we can get a nice retest of this support here in the market for next week for pound USD. So a bit of retracement, because that is quite a big drop there, bit of retracement into that level, and then we'll be looking for sells around there to take that back down into 1.36200. If we do break above that, we might come back and retest this trend line here. You can see there first test, second test, third test, maybe a fourth test, could be some sells around there. But overall, I'm not really too focused on the opportunity here. I have really nice confluence below that daily trend line, got this resistance there as well. So mainly looking at sells around here to take that back down to 1.36200. But yeah, if you do break to the upside, that trend line could be a nice opportunity there as well. And obviously, the risk reward is a lot better from up there as well. But I can see a move to the downside this week for pound USD, back down to 1.36200. Not sure if we'll break through or not. We'll see what happens, what type of price action we get there. But mainly looking for sells this week for pound USD, not really interested in the buys. So looking for sells from 1.37200 back down to 1.36200 for next week. Okay, so next we're going to move on to pound CAD. So pound CAD has been a little bit of a choppy pair recently. You can see in the daily, not looking too good, but essentially we're still holding our key level of support, which I've been talking about for about 2 or 3 weeks now. Key level of support, which price is holding that as resistance. So we're looking at continuations back down to daily lows or weekly lows, even around 1.68600, and then potentially some new lows around 1.68. So I can still see quite a lot more downside for pound CAD. We've really rejected it. You can see how many wicks we formed there, and now we're seeing some momentum to the downside. You can really see that on the 4H there. We came back to retest it after that big move down. We came back to retest it and still seeing more downside. So looking for overall, if you can get another lower high form somewhere, and then we'll be looking at continuations. We do have this really nice area of support, term resistance here, so we could be looking at a nice lower high around that area, around 1.7, nice psychological level as well. So you can get some nice price action around that area, bit of a trend line there as well. So some nice confluence adding up in this area. So we'll be looking for sales for 1.7 and take that down into first target, which has to be these prior lows. You can see strong move up, also that spike there as well. So we'll be looking for at least a push into this level, then we'll be looking at a push into those weekly lows, and then maybe 1.68 depending how far you want to push the trade. But yeah, those three are the targets, but overall 1.68 is where I do see price heading to. But like I say, you don't have the target all the way down there. You can just look for a push into that support, all those weekly lows, or again, you can look for 1.68 down there. But that's where I do see price going to for next week, as long as we stay below that key daily resistance and a push to the downside. So more downside for next week for pound CAD. Okay, so next up we've got pound JPY. So pound JPY, overall we had a sell bias this week for pound JPY. We're expecting more downside. Price is still holding on to this daily resistance and support though, so do have to watch out for that. But I'm still expecting for price to retrace some of this big bullish momentum. There's a lot of key levels here that haven't been retested as support, which we can still see price probably eventually doing. Again, it doesn't have to come all the way down here, just a little bit to the downside. The next target is 155, and the next psychological level, even that is looking like a good move, and then 154 potentially as well, looking like a great move as well. So looking at more downside, but we do need to break beneath this level, because if this does hold a support, price could easily move to the upside and see some new highs, and we could just be looking at continuation of that bullish trend. So far you can see on the pound JPY, we're putting in some nice, well, previously higher highs, higher lows, and then we put in this low here, next lower high, potentially another lower high there as well. So it looks like price is putting these lower highs eventually. I'm expecting a break to the downside, and like I said, targets at 155, which is down there. So looking for sells for pound JPY coming into next week, but we do need to stay beneath this trend line here in the market. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 tests of this trend line, so it's holding firmly. So if we can see some more retracement back into this trend line, we'll be looking at sells into that move there, and probably a test of this resistance here as well. So looking at sells around there, but again, watch out guys, make sure probably take some partials, because we do have this daily support here. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 rejections of this level. Easily price can come in for you, see a nice reaction, and then we could turn and go against you at that support. So maybe a stop loss to break even or take some profit at this 156 level, but I can see price eventually breaking through this and pushing into 155. If not, and we break to the upside, then we'll be looking for the retest of that trend line slash a retest of that resistance and support. And I do think we'll probably see some continuations back to highs for pound JPY, because again guys, these JPY pairs are still in a very, very bullish market on the higher time frames, so we could easily see a continuation, even though the 4H and the hourly are looking bearish. The daily and the weekly are still very bullish, which normally are the winning time frames when it comes to momentum. So if we do break to the upside above the trend line and resistance, wait for the break and retest, and we could be seeing some nice longs back to highs, which is 158,500. And if not, which is the main opportunity we're looking for sales around that trend line, or you could go for the safer option because you're not selling into the daily support. You can look for the safer option, which is probably less risk towards, but you can look for the break and retest of that, catch some nice retest there, maybe the lower time frames, hourly, 50-minute, then look for sales to the downside. So either which way you want to trade it, in that break and retest is still a good option, but I will be looking for the retest of that trend line for sales to the downside. And if we do break to the upside, we'll be taking those buys back up to 158,500 up there. Okay, so up next we've got gold. So gold has slowly been continuing to the upside for this one. Again, still looking at this key level of resistance here in the market. I said if you can break above this, then I do see price pushing back to these highs up there. If not, I can see a push to the downside back into this area here. And as you can see, price is rejecting that, and I do still think we can see it move back down into 1750 down there. We did have this trend line intact here coming into the week for gold. As you can see, it does look like price has broken through that. Again, it's not the most accurate trend line because price has broken below a couple times, but this is really a nice break there to the downside. So as long as we can stay below that, maybe see a retest of this trend line here, which is just formed. Retest of that trend line, could be looking at sales at another third lower high, back down into 750, or potentially if we do break above that, can be looking at sales at this resistance here, and then look for sales down there. Either which way, I see price filling that range back down to the downside, back down to 1752. DXY is looking very bullish. Looks like that one's on its way to the upside, and as DXY goes up, gold does come down. So I'm expecting that range to be filled to the downside, either at that trend line for a third test or just back at these highs, because price keeps rejecting it. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, probably will reject it a fourth time. Wait for your price action to confirm things, of course, and then yeah, we could be looking at a really nice swing trade to the downside. Obviously, you don't have to hold on to the trade that long. There will be some levels, you know, on the left of us around here or around there, of those which you can look to target. But as a swing trader, if there is some nice trades, we'll be looking to take advantage of this full swing if possible, of course, and a push back down into 750. And if we do, break above this, can fill that range to the upside, so you can look for the break and retest. Again, probability of that happening next week is quite low, but never say never in these markets. So overall, looking for sells either at this trend line or at that resistance 1804, back down to 1750 for next week. And last but not least, we got Bitcoin. So this pair overall still very, very bullish. Again, last week I did highlight a very key level that we were looking at on the daily time frame, which is this level here. As you can see, really strong resistance, broke above, we saw some new highs there, price came right down, retested, and continued to the downside. If I take that across, you can see overall price is holding this as support. So I said, if price does hold this as support, I do think Bitcoin will probably head back to highs again, which is 67k now, and probably some new highs maybe at 70k. So I can see some upside continuation. If it does go and break underneath this, then I think we'll come back and retest this previous high here on the left around the 52k, 53k. So probably a push to the downside, break and retest option, or you can just wait for buys around there. But overall, I think looking for buys above that level there for Bitcoin. Maybe you can get one more retest of that, coming into some resistance there, some supply could send us back down. But overall, looking for a lower high. High low, sorry, for push back into 67k, yeah, and then 70k up there. So overall, Bitcoin still bullish, holding that key level. If it does break underneath, the break and retest option to 53k looks good, but price is rejecting that very, very strongly there. So onwards and upwards for Bitcoin, back up to highs, and I think 70k is the next target for this one.
Okay, so that is the end of the video, guys. Hope you all enjoyed that and found that useful. Like always, guys, if you did enjoy the video, like, subscribe, all the good stuff is really much appreciated. Also hit the bell if you don't want to miss out on any future uploads. If you didn't understand something or want me to explain something, or just want to ask a question, leave a comment down below and I'll make sure I get back to you guys. But that is the end for this video, so I hope I see you guys in the next one, and I'll catch you guys later.